Now, if you're a driver in the capital, you'll know only too well just how much fuel has gone up in price. So it will come as no surprise that we've got the most expensive petrol in the country. Well, we found the priciest petrol in London, an eye-watering £2.39 per litre in Chelsea. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
Chelsea doesn't do cheap, but even in this affluent West London suburb, petrol at almost £2.40 a litre is quite something. And it certainly came as a shock to Owen, a gas engineer who needed a top-up.
It's just staggering, and it is absolutely just, I can't comprehend it. I've stopped using my van to use my partner's car to try and save a bit more on the fuel, to get around a bit more miles to the gallon, and still.
Roland, a courier, also found himself low on juice and had no choice but to fill up here. Fuel prices are hitting his business.
We have to start renegotiating our contracts with the companies that we work with, and it's a sticking point because, you know, there's always a fight there.
The forecourt wasn't busy today, perhaps not surprisingly. We counted 4 customers in half an hour. Most petrol stations advertise their prices on a large illuminated sign, but that's not the case here. The amount per litre is only displayed on the pumps. Take a closer look and unleaded is £2.38.9 a litre and diesel £2.49.9. Word has got around, among cabbies at least.
And most people know this is probably the most expensive petrol station in London, so I'll generally go to a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's petrol for that's the cheapest ones you'll get.
According to the RAC, the average price of petrol in London is 183.6 pence per litre. That's 1.3p higher than the UK average. For diesel, the average London price is 189.2 pence per litre. That's 1p higher than the national average.
Obviously, the best thing you can do as a driver in London is to shop around and know your cheapest places to buy fuel. Obviously, you've got to kind of bear in mind you mustn't drive too far, otherwise you kind of then will negate the benefit that you're likely to get at the pumps.
Peckham is just 5 miles from Chelsea, but a world away in petrol prices. The Asda filling station on the Old Kent Road sells unleaded for £1.78 and diesel for £1.87. For London, that's cheap, but still painful at the pump.
I think it's extortionate prices at the moment. I'd like to know where our 5 pence a litre, is it? Where that's gone to.
It's kind of worry because we have to pay like nearly the double price for diesel to work, so yeah.
Astronomical, but what can we do? We have to live with it. We're driving a car, otherwise we'll have to go back to donkeys.
ITV News approached the owner of the Chelsea filling station for a comment, but we haven't had a response. Simon Harris, ITV News, Chelsea.
Talks to avert crippling strikes on the railways are continuing, but with little hope of a last-minute deal to avoid chaos for commuters next week. Union members at 13 train companies will walk out next Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, cancelling thousands of services. And our political correspondent Simon Harris is here. So, Simon, what's the latest?
Well, the boss of Network Rail, who described the strikes as needless, said talks with the RMT hadn't progressed far. The dispute is over jobs and pay. Network Rail wants to cut up to 2,000 jobs as part of a modernisation plan, but thinks there'll be enough volunteers to avoid compulsory redundancies. The RMT also wants a pay rise which reflects the cost of living.
People have got to recognise, Londoners in this country have got to recognise, your pay has been going down for 30 years, and at the same time, the rich keep getting richer. We're the people that are out there fighting to make that change. We want people to have money in their pockets and secure employment. Every Londoner wants that.
The strikes were debated in the House of Commons today, where the Transport Secretary wanted to compare the pay of train drivers and rail workers with other public sector workers.
A train driver has a median salary of £59,000. That compares with a nurse at £31,000, a care worker at £21,000, and I hear they say, well, that's the train drivers. But even if you take the median within the rail sector itself, it's £44,000.
To make matters worse, on Tuesday, the first day of the strike, RMT workers on the Underground are also walking out in a separate dispute.
Oh, it could be a tricky day on Tuesday. Simon, thank you.
From rail to road now, and Sadiq Khan's being urged to postpone plans to expand the ultra-low emission zone as the cost of living rises. The consultations are underway for the £12.50 charge to cover the whole of Greater London. But our political correspondent, Simon Harris, has been to Bexley Heath, where people say the charge will damage business.
Bexley doesn't feel like London. People here refer to it as a village. You can see why. Yet it's just 15 miles from Piccadilly Circus and would be inside Sadiq Khan's expanded ultra-low emission zone. As far as Sharon is concerned, that would be a disaster for her coffee shop, already reeling from a post-COVID drop in trade.
It will just totally wipe out my business that I've built up over the last 3 years, because people come in from everywhere to have an afternoon tea. They're not going to pay £12.50 on top to come in, pay parking as well, and then pay for my afternoon tea as well. It's a bit expensive.
Bexley has a railway station, but many businesses rely on customers who come by car. They fear the ULEZ will simply drive them away.
It will make a massive difference, well, not just to my business, to everybody's business, to the whole village. You know, we need people to come in, especially after COVID. You know, it's crazy. I just think perhaps the Mayor hasn't got a handle on how businesses run.
City Hall claims more than 100,000 cars and vans a day will be taken off the roads. The expanded ULEZ will help in the battle against climate change and cut the sort of exhaust pollution blamed for 4,000 premature deaths in London every year.
So we want to expand the benefits that we've seen in inner London to the whole of London. Why should people in outer London not have the same clean air policies that people in inner London have hitherto enjoyed? So that's really what we want to do. Massively increase the benefit of reducing those NOx and other harmful particulate matter from vehicles.
MPs from outside Greater London point out many of their constituents regularly cross the border to places like Bexley.
This proposal from Sadiq Khan to expand the ULEZ scheme right out to the edge of outer London has got nothing to do with the control of pollution and everything to do with actually raising revenue. It's a form of taxation on the motorists. And of course it's taxation primarily on people who don't even live in London. So this is quite literally taxation without representation.
The Mayor's public consultation ends next month. If he decides to go ahead, the expanded ultra-low emission zone covering all of Greater London will arrive next summer.
Well, there'll be more on that on our political programme, The Late Debate, tonight, which Simon is currently preparing for. Here he is with what's coming up.
The expanded ultra-low emission zone isn't the only contentious transport topic we'll be discussing tonight. We're also asking whether union power is going to bring London to a standstill next week. The first of the RMT's rail strikes coincides with another walkout by RMT members on the Underground. Trains will be severely disrupted, and Transport for London says Londoners are strongly encouraged to avoid travelling. The government says it's determined to modernise the railways to make them fit for a post-COVID world. We'll be joined by a Conservative member of the London Assembly, a former Transport Minister and a shadow Transport Minister. That's The Late Debate here on ITV after news at 10.